Welcome to Real Talk with TAS and OnJerya. I hope everyone is having a great Tuesday evening. It has been a busy news week. So much has been happening. I was just reflecting on what has transpired from the weather to which has been somewhat rampant going across the country. I'm on the East Coast, and I think they're predicting that some of the weather that has impacted the middle of the country should hit us maybe Wednesday or Thursday. Then there's still been incidents of violence. I saw a headline that a preschooler had brought a loaded gun to school. Didn't get a chance to read that article, but I thought a preschooler brought a loaded gun to school. And we are in May, and it seems that as we often are coming to the end of the school year, we have more and more things that are taxing for our teachers and our school leaders. So I just thought, we'll take a breath on that. Then, of course, it is graduation season. So, yeah, that makes me smile because graduations are taking place. It was a weekend of graduations. This upcoming weekend is Mother's Day weekend, so there'll be more graduations. And those who have mothers will be celebrating their mothers or their mother figures. And even if the mothers are no longer with us, it's still an opportunity to reflect on our mothers and their impact on our lives. So for some, it will be bittersweet. Others will be celebrating. And again, for some, it will be graduations because there will be some graduations taking place Mother's Day weekend. And as I continue to reflect on what all had been taking place over the last 5 or 6 days, it's been a lot. And so I said to OnJerya, I said, well, we got a lot to talk about. We got a lot to unpack. And, I said, we've got some things we're going to have to unpack. So I hope that you are ready to unpack these things. And, OnJerya, she's always ready for unpacking because, she tries to keep her hand on the pulse, as I like to say. And she always has a different take on things. And so I always enjoy talking with her about things that are happening. So I've sent her an invite to join me. So hopefully she'll hop on and give us her take on some of the things that have happened in the last, I'm going to say, maybe 72 hours, 48 to 72 hours that have been happening around the country, because I'd like to get her take on it. I've got some thoughts about some of these things, but her take is always a little different because she's a different generation than me. So, she said she didn't get it. Well, let's give it a moment because I sent it. And let's see if you get it. Because I sent it. We don't want it going back and forth, OnJerya. Because I sent you the invite. I don't know what's going on with the technology in OnJerya, as my friend would call her, OnJerya. I've done it again, OnJerya. I don't understand why you can't get an invite. Did you get it this time? Because I do want your insight on what's happening. Well, why don't you try to join? Because you should be able to join. I'm always able to join other people's lives. I just choose not to join because I'm not a part of their lives. Are you there, Miss O?
Oh my God. Felt like I was at work. I was like, man, my teens was acting up today. I was like, look, Mercury retrograde, you have passed, honey. I understand we in that shadow period, but shadow, rain, go away. I mean, hi,
I just
everyone.
don't know. I just don't know what's going on with you in technology.
No, I'm
Please,
telling you, man.
please call technical support, please.
No, I need this juju to go way. Because again, like I said, at work, it was the same way. I couldn't join like the meetings. I had to have people to add me. I'm like, can you add me to the meeting? And they're like, oh, I'm having problems too. I'm like, I guess this is one of those, as IT would say, delete your cookies and your caches or however you pronounce it. You need to start, shut down, reboot. You know, that's what IT tell you because that fixes everything, right? There's
Of course.
possibly no wrong.
I said, you know, it's all juicy we want to talk about. And I'm like, I just got to get your viewpoint on this stuff that's been happening. And then if I done set it up and then we can't get your viewpoint, I mean, I'm going to be feeling like I missed out because we've been holding on talking about this so we could talk about it live. And then I can't even get you on. I'm like,
I
my
know it,
God.
girl. It's okay. I don't have no sage, but if I had some, I'd definitely be saging because obviously, okay, like somebody don't want to get this word out.
But we
I
got to hear
wonder
your
why.
word. We want to hear your word. So I done told them about all the things that's happening, the flooding, the weather is moving to us on the East Coast, but we don't want any flooding. They were talking about the tornadoes, you know, all the stuff that's happening. I talked just briefly about, as I told you, about the preschool child who brought a loaded gun to school. I didn't get a chance to read the article. I just saw the headline. We're celebrating graduation season
Yeah.
and Mother's Day is coming up Sunday.
Yep.
There will still be more graduations, and of course, high school graduations are going to be coming up, but college graduation certainly. And then it's just been a lot of things happening over the last 48 to 72 hours that we want to talk about. And I knew that you had an opinion, and we want to get your opinion on it. So, do you want to lead out with those things, Anjaya?
No, I'm gonna let you. I'm gonna let you take the lead because it seemed like technology don't want to be nice to me tonight.
You know, I just don't know why I even talk to you. Okay, guys, picture it.
Cicely.
Absolutely. Sunday service. The pastor is up preaching. Now I could go left or I can go right. I don't know which one I'm gonna go with first. I'm gonna go with this one. The pastor is up preaching, and the next thing we know, a young man walks in and he points a gun at the pastor. And he pulls the trigger, but the gun doesn't fire. And then the cameraman, who I think was a deacon, rushes the young man, and he is able to tackle him, jumps over the railing that is at the altar.
Mm-hmm.
And then the pastor comes back, and they're able to get the gun out of the young man's hand. And the young man, and they call the police and everything, and the young man says that he was hearing voices, and that the voices had told him to hurt the pastor. And when they went to the young man's home, they did find a body, if I'm not mistaken. And some outlets are saying that it may have been the young man's uncle, if I'm not mistaken, and that the young man, as far as I've been able to read and ascertain, had been a model citizen. He had no record. I don't think there's been any issues of any sort. But on Sunday, he went to this church and he pointed a gun at the pastor and attempted to shoot him because he was hearing voices. So I guess Anjaya, the May is Mental Health Month, you know, and it's, you know, And we're just at the beginning of Mental Health Month. And when I saw that, I was taken back. And being in the South and being in the Carolinas, I thought about the shooting that occurred in Charleston. And I didn't do my research, guys, to try to tell you the name of the church, but it was during the time when President Obama was still in office, if I'm not mistaken, and the young man walked in during Wednesday night Bible study or prayer meeting, whatever, however you want to phrase that Wednesday night service, and he opened fire and killed several people. And I can remember after that incident, churches were very they were on guard, and they didn't have security. They got people who were serving in that role. They were much more conscientious about who was coming in and out of their church doors once service started. And so just seeing this happen, it just made me think about that. And the fact that even though we're in the house of the Lord, or whatever faith that you have, I'm a Christian, but even though you're in your place of worship, um, we have to still be on our guard.
Yeah.
Excuse me, we live in a time where we can't let our guard down any place really. And so I didn't know, OnJerya, what you thought about that particular incident where the young man walked in the church and pointed the gun and pulled the trigger, but the gun jammed and he wasn't able to shoot the pastor on Sunday.
So I was actually talking about this because I kind of heard about it, but I really didn't understand exactly what had happened.
Mhm.
Um, but the conversation that I had with someone, they let me know, like you stated, that the neighbors were like, this was completely like out of the norm for this man, this young gentleman, I guess. And, as the story goes on, is that when they went to his home, someone was there unalive. And I think it's now been determined that it was his uncle. So, you know, again, it's just like, well, what happened? Because, I'm trying to track like what happened, because basically, from my understanding with the pastor giving his interview, is like he didn't know him. Like, so this was just some random person. And again, I'm thinking, just like with that incident that happened in Charleston, that he just walked into the church and was getting ready to open fire. But from my understanding, and again, it's still under investigation, so things will eventually come out, that I guess they were having service. But like how it's been like since COVID,
Mhm.
how like some people are live streaming, and I guess this was doing the live stream. And so he had been going in and out. So, right. So I guess that's why people were kind of like, and I mean, as you know, like we know people come in and sit down and walk out and go to the bathroom, or, step out for a minute, take a phone call, what have you. So I don't know. It's like that last time he stepped back in there, then that's when all of that transpires. So I think it just really caught everyone off guard,
Mhm.
um, because they wasn't expecting that to happen. But my thing is, it's always the why, right? Like, um, I had this conversation, was that last week? Week before last? I've had this conversation with the same person about the last 2 weeks about why. Like, people just don't wake up and do something. Like, there's a reason behind it. Like, there's something that leads up to why they do what they do. And I'm sure that as they continue to investigate, we will determine like what the why is. Because again, it seems like for right now, it wasn't premeditated. He just was, you know, um, I guess doing his day to day. And I don't know if, again, there are some mental illnesses that maybe he wasn't aware of, or maybe he is aware of. Again, we don't know. And I guess, as they continue to research, more and more will come out. But I think it's also scary because it just shows like how lax we've become. Because I don't know either when that took place in Charleston, but it hasn't been that long ago.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it just shows that you always need to have your guard up, no matter what. Like, I know we want to let our guard down because it's a lot of pressure and it's a lot of weight to have your guard up 24/7. Trust me. But you want to get to a point where you can let your guard down, but things are always happening. And this is again a reminder, like, even though in this particular setting it was a church, I even hope that schools are looking at this because again, you know, things happen so quickly, and I'm pretty certain that when they got up that morning and went to church, no one was thinking like, hey, look at your neighbor to the left, look at your neighbors to the right. Do I need to be questioning, do you got Smith and Wesson with you? And if you do have Smith and Wesson with you, are you going to use it? I don't think that that's something that, someone, especially in the house of the Lord, come on now. Now, we're not supposed to be acting up, not at church, even though we do, but we shouldn't. Like, that's a sacred place. And so, I don't know. I guess we'll just find out more as it unfolds.
Yeah, and see, I didn't realize that they were streaming, and that's
Yeah.
how everything was caught on camera. Because I seen the video because I know it was on the news yesterday morning, national
Yeah.
news, and then I actually saw it on YouTube, and I think it was a portion of CNN, and they were actually interviewing the pastor. And at that point, but I still didn't think of the fact that they would have been streaming, and I hadn't heard that the young man had been going in and out of the service. And like you said, I was an usher growing up, and people would get up and go in and out to the bathroom or whatever they were doing, and they still do it now, but you don't really think anything about it. But I will say now, if I was ushering, I would think a little something about it, even if they were our regular church parishioners, because I'd be concerned that something was wrong. But if they weren't our regular church members, I'd be a little concerned because I'd wonder, what are they doing? And it could have been, and it could be that they got an upset stomach. You know what I'm saying? But I'd still be wondering why they're going in and out like that. But I hear what you're saying, that the young man was going in and out. And then the last time when he came back in is when he walked up and pulled the gun on the pastor. But I will say they interviewed I think it was the cameraman. He was watching, but being the cameraman, he would have been alert because he's scanning the room, because I don't know if he would have been panning the camera as the pastor would have been preaching, but his vision and his awareness would have been different from maybe other folks. And I don't know if if other members were actually in the building, but the cameraman would have been tuned in a little differently because he responded quickly and tackled the gentleman. And I don't know if it was him that said that, God did not allow that gun to fire, that it jammed. And therefore, he was able to, keep the young man from killing or shooting the pastor and then hurting anybody else. And of course, at that point in time, they didn't know that there was someone to be found, perhaps unresponsive, at the young man's home at that point. But, it does beg, what do we need to do about keeping ourselves safe? What is the responsibility of the church? What's the responsibility of churchgoers? If you're an usher, like I am, what is my responsibility as a church usher? What type of training do we provide? Because I think for a lot of folks, we think that we don't need to provide that type of training anymore. But with this incident just happening, that lets us know that we still have to be vigilant. And there perhaps needs to be some real, if there isn't, because I don't know, guys, but there needs to be some real training around safety, because the issues are not going away. And even if you have cameras, there's nothing that says to you when a person walks up on the church ground that they have a gun or any type of weapon that they could potentially hurt the folks on the inside with. So it's just, I think that, as you said, things will continue to unfold, and it's something that we have to be, unfortunately, we have to be super vigilant about, because these are the times that we live in, and we can no longer think that these are just one-off events, because they keep happening, so they can't be one off because they keep happening, and it doesn't appear to be any rhyme or reason as to why they happen, and nobody seems to be, or no group seems to be exempt.
Right. And
So
it's sad because it's like, I mean, we have freedom in
yeah,
quotation, you know. And in some states they have, what is it, the right to bear arms, or um it's like when you talk about that three-letter word, guns or whatever, it's as we all know, it's a very like sensitive subject. It's also like kind of like politics. Like you don't want to talk about it because everybody has their opinion, and depending on who you're talking to, it can go to the left real quick. Because again, people feel very passionate about that, and you know, to each his own. But I mean, we don't want to be living in like prison where you have to have like metal detectors, just to go into the building. Like you go into the courthouse, and we got to pat people down, and like you going through TSA at the airport, I need you to open your bag, and then you got to look through the bag. Like, I mean, come on, like.
but you have to do that. Don't you? Either do they look through your bag at concerts and entertainment venues, or either you take the clear bag. So
That could be an option. That you have that you have to have a clear bag with you. But again, like you know, technology and things are so
yeah,
cute. You know, anything could be a weapon,
mhm,
and you don't even know it's a weapon because, like, think of a pencil, not a pencil, like a pen,
yeah.
right? Like, oh, you think it's just a good old fountain ink pen, and then you take the cap off, and now it done became a knife, and you can just Zorro somebody real quick. I mean, it's crazy. Like, there's companies that sit there and think of like ways to kind of like get over and yeah. So I don't know. Like it's sad that we have to live in fear when we shouldn't have to, because again, we should have that understanding that you know when we come together, particularly at the place of worship, that we should be there to worship. We shouldn't be there coming with the intent of hurting someone. So that's why I'm saying, it's a little more to this than just, oh, this person just popped up and decided to do this. Whether there was, again, some mental illness that's not being disclosed at this point, whether there is deep down through the years, the Lord been good to me. Uh, they cross paths, and maybe you cut me off while driving one day. I mean, people crazy out here. You just don't know. And maybe you was in the grocery store, and maybe he spoke to you, and you just didn't speak. I mean, it can be anything where you're like, I didn't know this person, but this person was aware of you. It could have been as simple as like my ancestors came to your church many moons ago, and now you the pastor, and this used to be their church, and it's any and every. It's always a rhyme of reason as to like why people do what they do. Now there are some instances where stuff kind of is just like they have no connection whatsoever. Somebody just decided to be happy and just chose random people to do as they do, but I mean, this one, I don't know. It's like I would like to see how it unfolds as they continue to investigate it.
Well, I think that's what we're going to have to do. But my question is, do we live in fear?
I think some do and some don't.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't. I mean, I don't know if church people are thinking about it as fear. I think that, and this is just me thinking, that for a lot of people, their faith would say that there is no fear.
Right.
But then my thing would be, um, what's that script, faith without works. But my thing would be, he gives us free will,
He
and
does.
and we got choices. And I like to believe he gives us intellect, and we need to
Absolutely.
exercise our intellect. it doesn't mean there's a fear factor.
Mhm.
We need to exercise our intellect because we live in a different society than what we lived in 10 years ago or
Mhm.
15 years ago or 20 years ago. And so we have to shift with the society. And so to think that it's just, okay to, and, there may be some churches that still do this. If they're listening to me, maybe take heed that it's okay to be in a church and have the church doors open, unlocked during the service, and nobody's on the doors and checking it and checking to see what's going on. I just don't advise that in 2024. I'm sorry. Because anybody can come in your church and you not even know they're there. And even if your door has a ding, if service is going
You're
on,
not going.
say the choir is singing or there's some singing going on, you won't hear that ding. If the minister or pastor is preaching, you won't necessarily hear the ding when somebody opens that door. So again, someone can still be in your church. They may not be in the church to hurt you, but you can lock your church up, close it out, everybody's left, and you block that person in there. So again, it may
True.
not be that their intent was to hurt you. Their intent could be to have a place to sleep. Their intent could be to see if there's anything in it they can take, that they can steal. But the bottom line is, we have to be more aware of the world that we're living in now. It's a different world. And so we have to be conscious of that. So,
I agree, and those are some good tips because you're absolutely right. Because I know, like, I mean, again, like my church, my home church is medium. It ain't even small. It's just yeah. Me and Teresa's the church. No, I'm just kidding. But the membership is really, really small.
mhm,
So, and it's a home church where pretty much like if you're not related, you've been there so long that you're pretty much family. So we pretty much kind of know who come to church. Because
mhm,
you kind of have an idea, okay, if such and such ain't here by this time, chances are they ain't come to church today.
mhm,
So in the beginning, when all of that stuff, happened like happened in Charleston, of course we was very much like, okay, let's lock the doors. Like once everybody gets in, lock the doors, da 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 woo woo. Okay, but again, we've become lax, and so it's like, well, nothing has happened. We haven't heard anything, so now we're not locking the doors, right? But even if you don't lock the doors, you still should just always be mindful and aware of your surroundings. Period. Like I tell anyone, I say anytime I go anywhere, I don't care if it is the grocery store or the banks. And I hate going inside the bank. Ooh, I do not like going inside the banks or convenience stores. I just have issues with that. Like, who them places where it's one way in, one way out type situation. Ooh, I can't. So I do all that I can if I can help it, like not to go to places like the bank and convenience stores where it's one way in, one way out type situation. But regardless, whenever I go somewhere, I'm already looking for the exit. Now my mama gonna tell me, well, OnJerya, I'm gonna find the bathroom. And that's cool too, the bathroom is definitely one place you need to know where it's at. But I'm
mhm,
also gonna locate where my exits are because things
mhm,
happen so quick and you just don't know when you got to break out.
mhm,
And you
mhm.
just want to make sure that you are doing your due diligence to help yourself. Now, we're going to do just like they tell you on the airplane, okay? Make sure you take care of you first. Put your mask on first. Now, in the event of an evacuation, you put your vest on. And then you help somebody else put theirs on. So that's the same scenario. Like, I'm going to make sure that in the event of emergency, I know where all my exes are. Yes, I did say exes. I sure did. Uh, so if something pop out, if I have to get down like it's a fire, because when they say it's a fire, there's smoke in the air, you're supposed to get down and crawl low, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, if y'all didn't learn that in school, I'm sorry for you. I don't know if they teach that to the kids now. If not,
Okay,
okay,
child.
that's a learning opportunity for you. When it's smoke, you're supposed to drop down to the floor and crawl. I don't know if they teach that in school. They hardly teach anything worth needing to know. Okay, but I'm securing all exits, okay? Look to the left, to the right. And that's what they tell you on the airplane. Please locate the nearest emergency exit.
Mhm.
Okay. And so I'm definitely going to make sure that that's what I do. So for anyone who does not do that now, whether you at a restaurant, whether you're at, like you said, a concert, it don't matter. You need to always know that if something pops off, where you gonna go? Okay, if it's happening on the left, where am I gonna go on the right to make sure I avoid it? If it's
Mhm.
happening in front of me, where am I gonna go left, right to avoid what's happening? Like, so I'm not running into a line of fire. So yes, we become lax. Again, this is that reminder of, unfortunately, we shouldn't have to live this way, but these are different times, as you stated. These are not the times, like Little House on the Prairie, whatever, with, Joe and them, where, you can leave your front door unlocked and not afraid that somebody gonna come in there and have
On that note, Andrea, I'm going to move you along. We definitely not going to leave our doors unlocked. Um, do you have two devices up, Andrea?
No.
Okay. I'm just hearing myself vibrate or echo. It's technology.
Yes.
Love it. Now, Andrea, we're going to stay in this church realm.
Yes.
So on one hand, we had the young man walking in an attempt to shoot the pastor who was in the pulpit preaching. On the other hand, we had the pastor. It was a moment of praise, is the way I'm going to put it. It was a moment of praise, and it appeared that a young lady was making sound,
Mm-hmm.
and the pastor
Mm-hmm.
walked up to her and shushed her. Now, let me say this, guys, before we get in further with that. Now, I have been rebuked. I shushed a man, and I was rebuked. I was on the phone talking to somebody else on the cell phone, and they were trying to talk to me too. And I said, shh, and I was rebuked. I didn't understand that you can't shush people, but I was on the phone. I can't have two conversations at the same time. Sometimes I do, but I was trying to have this conversation. And I was trying to tell them that, and I was like, I was rebuked. So the pastor shushed the lady. Now, him and his wife were on Tamara Hall, and correct me, Anjay, this is Keion. Am I pronouncing this really correctly? Is it Henderson?
Yeah, Keion Henderson, Pastor
Keion
Henderson.
Henderson. He's married to Shaquille O'Neal's ex-wife. What's her first name?
Shawnee
Shawnee O'Neal
Henderson.
Henderson. Okay, she was on Tamron Hall promoting her new book, and he was with her. And so he indicated, since this has gone viral, that this has been an issue that he has had with this young lady for 4 years. And he has tried to help her to understand, this is my interpretation of what he was saying, the appropriate time for her expression. And he has not gotten anywhere with her. And so on Sunday, he was wanting only for God's voice to be heard. So he was speaking low, softly, and maybe they were playing, total praise was being played by the musicians, and maybe he was slightly saying the words and singing, but it was low. And he only wanted God's voice to be heard. But this young lady was making noise. Nobody else was. And I'm thinking maybe she was a part of the choir because there were other people in that area, but they weren't making any noise. So he turns around, walks up to her, shushes her, turns around, and walks back and continues doing what he's doing. Well, it has gone viral because he shushed her. Now, there's a lot of trains of thought with this OnJerya. I want to know what you think about the shushing that's been heard around the world.
Let me sip again on that.
Sip on that one.
Oh, honey. So, I'm a little conflicted, and here's why. So, we grew up Baptist,
Mm-hmm.
and Baptist is different based off of where you live and what goes on in your church. Now, I can only talk about what went on in my church. Now, in our church,
There's somebody that knows. I believe there's somebody with us that knows our church tonight. That's on here.
um,
Uh huh. Right.
how should I say this? Okay, I'm just gonna say it.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, at our church, we don't have all that. I'm just gonna be honest. Like, we don't have people speaking in tongues.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have, like, all you gonna get is a hand clap. And even if you get a hand clap, somebody probably gonna be looking at you sideways. You may get an amen, and they still gonna be looking at you sideways. So for me, if I was still in that in the church role, I definitely can see why he did what he did. I'd have been looking at sideways. I'd have been, girl. He said, "Be quiet. Why you up there being disobedient?" Cause again, that's how we grew up. Okay, in the church. Now that I'm a little more cultured, is that the word I want to use? A little more cultured. Is that the word? You
You've
know,
been
I've had a
exposed
little,
to more, so you're more cultured.
right. Like I've been exposed to more.
Okay.
Various denominations, and some non-denominations. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with people hollering, shouting, screaming, speaking in tongues, and falling out on the floor and being covered up. I'm perfectly okay with that now. But had that been happening back when I was growing up in the church, honey, that was a no-no. And even now, that's still a no-no. Because we don't do that at my church, okay? We not fixing to have the pastor up there anointing you with oil and just woo, you falling out, and the ushers come and just lay the blanket up. We don't have that at my church, okay? So here, so giving again my background, but I'm a little experienced now because I've been exposed to other things. I have never witnessed this with my eyes, meaning like I have in person witnessed this. I've never witnessed this, but I've heard of people talking about people having demonic spirits in them. And with this particular situation, everyone's kind of used to it. Because, see, I watch Pastor, Keion fairly every Sunday, you know. So I understand where he's coming from. And as he stated, you know the difference between the Holy Spirit and a spirit of distraction. And I feel leaning towards what he's saying, that this was a spirit of distraction. It wasn't necessarily that she was speaking in tongues, because if you notice, when he walked over to her and asked her to hush or silence or be quiet or however he phrased it, it's like she immediately stopped. So it's not like he was talking to the flesh. He was talking to what was in her. And the fact now, hearing after the fact that this is a conversation that he has had with her, it calls into question that I've seen in like a lot of the comments. Is this particular ministry for her? Or is there some soul searching that needs to be done? I.e., going back to that mental health, that mental illness. Because obviously you've been there long enough, you kind of know how things are structured at the church, right? That's just like when we all went to the Beyonce concert and we did the mute challenge. Everybody on mute. You know, some of us was on mute and some of us was still talking. I mean, I take it as that same concept. Like, he asked for everyone to be quiet and let the Lord pour into you and speak to you. And for her to be someone that he's constantly had to have conversations with, to me, you're being disobedient. And it's not being disobedient to man, because see, we get caught up in like, well, he's a man. Yes, he is a man operating in the flesh, but he's also a man of God. You know what I'm saying? So in that moment, he wanted everyone, again, I have to listen to the whole sermon to get what was the leading up to, right? Because we only see the little snippet. We don't know what words and what was being done leading up to what
One after.
transpired, right? We only know what happened in that little 2.5 second clip that we all have seen, okay? But you're being disobedient. Because in that moment, he wanted everyone to be quiet so that you can hear what was being said. And the fact that you have been told on numerous occasions for the last 4 years that what you're doing, we would like for you to kind of stop. Now, I don't know again how they phrased it to her behind closed doors, and people gonna say, oh, he should have pulled her behind, Some people were like, oh, well, in my church, when people like that, the usher just kind of usher them right on out. Again, everybody's church is different and they handle things their own way. But like I said, I feel like it was a spirit of distraction, because you have been told time and time again that you need to mute yourself. But yet you're choosing to not mute yourself. So it leads me to believe that, again, it was a spirit of distraction, that there is something within her that perhaps needs to come out of her to help her get through whatever it is that she's dealing with. Because let's be honest, if someone tells you to stop playing with the fire, because if you put your hand over there, you're gonna burn your hand, and you continue to do it, and you continue to do it, and you continue to do it. Well, now you done laid your hand over there on the fire, and now your hand done burnt off, or you got all these burns and this on your hand. You chose to be disobedient. So that's my take on it. Is like, again, I feel like what he did was right. I don't feel he did anything wrong. I also feel like he knows his members. No one can talk about what goes on in that church, because again, we are not members of that organization. So we're outside looking in. But if he not had a conversation with her to humble herself, it kind of, like I said, it calls into question, are you really doing this because you're getting the Holy Spirit, like you're caught up in what's being said and you just don't know how to control it? Or are you caught up because now you want attention and you don't care what type of attention you get, as long as you get some attention?
Well, and Jay, you've heard me say this your whole life, that uh, was how do I even put it? Negative attention is better than no attention at all. Where I'm going to put it tonight. Because when someone wants attention, they want attention. And I'm not saying this young lady wants attention, but there are many schools of thought with this, and I thank you for going back and talking about our church because that sets the tone for how we engage in this conversation. Even though we're cultured now, because we've been exposed to many different things. Um, but growing up in the environment that we grew up in, there's not a lot of, there are people who got the Holy Spirit. I can remember when one person would speak in tongues, people for a long time looked at this person very oddly. Um, but I think that they got accustomed to the person speaking in tongues when they were shouting, or when they were happy, or when they were spirit filled. Um, but we did not grow up in a church where it was very high spirited. So therefore, that's a little foreign, but we've been exposed to it now, as you said. Now, you watch Pastor Keion Henderson. I don't watch him. So you have more insight to what his services typically are like than what I do. Uh, I've just seen the little snippets. And as you said, that's taken one portion, that 2 minutes or whatever, out of a whole service. So we don't know what was going on before. We don't know what happened afterwards. As he said on Tamron Hall, he had spoken with her privately. And that particular time, he did it publicly. But it's not like he hadn't been speaking with her for 4 years. I think you bring up a good point about whether or not that is the proper place of worship for her. And I say it because of the fact that if someone continually spoke to me about something that I did, I would have to question whether or not I want to stay connected to that person, that entity, whatever it is, that job, that organization, whatever, because obviously it's not a good fit. And so for the person to stay, but they haven't shifted their behavior, not to say they have to shift their behavior, but they're choosing to stay, then that does call something into question. Now, what's being called into question, I don't know. But it does make you wonder as to why she has chosen to stay there. Now, I don't know whether it was a spirit of attraction. I don't know. Some people are saying that maybe the demon spirit. I don't know anything about any of that. I don't know this young lady. I don't know what her behavior is like. I am not an expert on demon spirits. I'm not trying to be no expert on demon spirits. That is beyond my capabilities or want to be my capabilities. Some people talk about order and the order and the way that, the pastor wanted things to flow. Well, there's always order. There's order in everything. I just baked a cake. There's an order with baking a cake. Literally, I just baked the cake before we came on and just iced it. There's a process with baking a cake. And I don't follow the steps in the order that you have to do it, then the cake doesn't work. Meaning it doesn't bake the right way. So there has to be order. So whether he was wanting a certain type of order, there has to be order. There has to be order on our jobs. There has to be order with everything. So again, I'm not going to give Carlos on that. Is she going through something? We talked about mental health, earlier, and particularly as relates to the other case that occurred on Sunday. Is she going through something that could be mental health related? It's a possibility. I don't know what sort of ministries the church may have. They may have even, tried to intervene from that perspective. We don't know that. Um, but we know, based upon what the pastor said on Tamron Hall, this was not something that was new. Um, Now, for us as the viewers, until he said that, we thought it was just something, some of us thought it was just something out the blue. But this is not out the blue. This is something that has been going on for quite some time. The question is there a resolution? Will she be there on Sunday? And what will her behavior be?
I feel like there's a resolution. It goes back to like we've said, honey. When it's not a good fit for you, it's okay. I promise you. It's
But
we like to be boxed into this one size fit all, honey. Everything sometimes can't be a one size fit all type of situation, and this is one of those. Like that's like again, as you stated, being on your job. Okay, if your manager is having a conversation with you to be like, "Hey, honey, uh, I see you struggling. uh, what can we do to help you, kind of be able to do your job?" And you're, oh, and they give you training, they give you coaching, depending on what it is that you do, whatever language you're used to. We put you back through special training. We sit with you, your shadow, and it's not getting better. Not it's a you problem because see, they did their part. So when you ain't got a job anymore, there's no reason for you to be in your feelings about, well, why am I fired? Baby, we try to work with you. Okay? And you won't try to work with us. So we had to let you go. And I feel like that's basically what it is with this situation. They have spent 4 years working with you. And you have just not did your part. Okay? Because again, we a team, right? So if I'm pouring into you, you need to be pouring back into us, and we not pouring into each other right now because I'm doing all that I can to help you understand that. So to me, it kind of seems like we have now determined, or they have determined, that this is not a Holy Spirit filled moment from this individual. Because again, if it was, I don't think they would be telling her for 4 years that you need to be quiet. If you really was truly, you know, led and filled with the Holy Spirit, and you was caught up in the moment, and you're speaking in tongues, and you're crying, and you're yelling, and you're running around the church with your shoes off or whatever. Like I don't think.
don't exaggerate, Angie. Don't exaggerate now.
I mean, I'm just saying, like again, if that was the case, I don't see that this will be a problem. But the fact that he is stating that it's been 4 long years, I've been waiting
Now you sound
for
like a
you.
song.
Okay,
You
four
know, that's my song.
four long
Ain't
years.
it been too long? Ain't it been 2 years? 2 long years?
2 long years. Okay, promises is all I heard. So for 4 years, promises is all that they have heard. With you getting it together, if you're not getting it together, it has now become a you problem. And the only reason why it went viral is because he wanted everyone to be quiet. And he was live streaming. And again, we know how them live streams will get you caught up.
They
Okay? And that's
like a
the
hot
only
mic,
reason.
live stream, hot mic, hot mic.
And that's the only reason why we know about this. It's
Mm-hmm.
because of the live stream. Somebody probably went, people technology is so good. Somebody screen recorded that and was like, "Girl, did you see this? What happened in church?" And it went on the tickety talk world, and then it blew up, and then it was on the shade room and the neighborhood talk and every other TMZ and all.
Yep.
But the thing is, why are you being disobedient? Why are you being defiant? If you have been asked to stop doing this and you're continuing to do it, there's a problem with you. And the
Well, no,
thing is, it sounds like it's not a good fit. And because it's not a good fit, you need to let that shoe go because obviously you cannot wear a size 5 with your size 11 foot. So you need to cut your ties and move on and find something that's a better fit for you.
I just can't with you. So you said I'm one of them stepsisters from Cinderella, and I'm trying to get my size 11 into a size 5 shoe, knowing that I can't stuff my foot in that shoe.
That's what I'm saying.
I just can't with you. But really, we're talking about this situation. But you made a really good point. Why is it so difficult for us to cut our losses and move on?
Because I don't want to.
But is that so? I mean, when you make that statement, it reminds me of someone that we know who is below the age of 15. I don't want to.
Yeah.
Okay. So that means that we never lose that inner child. I don't want to. Well, at what point is it the inner child or is it something else happening?
I mean, it's probably both. But the bottom line is, at this point, sis need to cut her loss. Cause let me tell you something. I could not after what happened on Sunday, after being embarrassed. For those of you that get that, you get it. After being embarrassed out here in the public eye, you couldn't pay me money to show up on Sunday morning.
Maybe she's gonna blow up like Rita Tifa. Somebody go interview her. Get her side of the story.
Her side of the story is your time is up. In the words of Shawnee O'Neal Henderson, thank you for your services.
Somebody is trying to reach her right now to get her side of the story.
It don't even matter.
So nothing even matters no more.
Nothing even matters no more at all. You have been told several times to get it together. And that's why I'm saying, like, so to me it seems like it's just an act. Like it's not a genuine I'm in the spirit. Because I mean, I'm pretty certain that they kind of know, like, if she for real or is she playing games. And the fact that you're having to address this, it comes across. We can infer. They want the
Not
kids to infer.
infer. Not
They
infer.
want the, yes, girl. They want them kids to infer and use some critical thinking skills that they have not told them kids and show them how to think. But that's a conversation for another day.
I'm not laughing at the kids, guys. It's a private joke because I'm always saying infer, and so I'm laughing at the fact that she's throwing that infer